Howdy, welcome back to Dion Talk. Today I'm going to make the video I wasn't sure I ever was going to actually make. I told myself if I ever hit 1,000 subscribers, I would do this, and my lazy kicked in, and then I hit 2,000. And I think the only reason I'm able to trick myself into actually making this video is that I'm traveling. Since I'm kind of out of my element, I think I'm able to convince myself that it's okay now to finally make this video. Today, what I'm going to cover is how a person can wake up and find themselves in $89,000 in bad debt without them knowing about it. It's not only possible, it's actually what happened to me. And I'm pretty sure that I'm only making this because I think when I'm done, I'm probably just going to delete it. So if you're watching this, that means that when I was done, I found some vodka and I drank enough for me to be able to hit the post button. If this is your first time coming to my channel, my goal is to teach the average person that it's possible to reach financial independence in less than 10 years, even if you're not starting from the best position, which I wasn't. Single parent, 3 kids, and woke up one day and found out about this $89,000 in bad debt. And before I jump into the content, I want to explain what I call traveling. I have some amazing friends who were purchasing an RV, and they casually mentioned that they would like to have it delivered from Texas to their house, and I said, I would like to do that. And it's not because I'm a really good friend or anything, it's because it means at least 2 or 3 days by myself in the middle of nowhere. So I drove this RV across Texas to hang out in Arizona at this house. And apparently this dog is fascinated by somebody talking to themselves, staring at a camera. And it's kind of funny that your friends think it's weird that you bring a map with you, but this is actually a giant blanket. So it worked out well for the trip. Okay, now let's jump into the story that I never thought I would record. Take 7. Take 10. Take 12. What is it about talking about something that affects us emotionally makes our throat constrict? What kind of evolutionary mistake is that? Because I'm pretty sure that when I'm emotionally stressed, I'd like to be able to communicate better. Take 12.5. Look, I'm just going to delete this, just get the words out. My story of $89,000 in bad debt comes in 3 phases. The first phase, shame on someone else. The second phase, shame on me. And the third phase, I figured out something that can actually help you. There's something that you can learn by the end of this video where you can take a large amount of bad debt and reduce it before you even start making payments. And one of the things that's really important before I get into the 3 phases is that it takes 2 people to get married. It takes 2 people to have kids. Currently, I'm sure people are working on that. And it takes 2 people to cause a divorce. I am completely 100% aware of my problems and my faults in the marriage. I prioritized the kids. I focused on work to provide for the kids. And what sane woman on the planet wants to start off in 3rd position? I completely get that. So this is not a focus on marriage or divorce. This is a focus on how debt works. Phase 1. I was married, we had 3 kids, and we purchased a house. Now, this was before I ever decided to own a rental or get into investing. This was just, buy the house with the white picket fence to trap the kids in with the pets. And we purchased a house, but when we went to do it, we ran my credit for the first time because I was an investor, didn't know how to do that. And when I ran my credit, a whole bunch of debt appeared that I didn't know about. And so at the time, a friend of my wife's admitted to identity theft because the debt had been going to her address. So it was pretty easy to track down what the problem was. My spouse, ex-spouse now, and I'll probably mess up the chronology on that all the way through this video, sorry, and her friend said they would call all of the debtors, admit that it was identity theft, and she would take over the debt and I wouldn't have to pay it, so there was no reason to call the cops or get anybody else involved. And because I'm stupid, because I have trust, I thought that's what was happening. I'm more than likely going to delete them, but I think a really good drinking game for this video would be to drink every time the dog barks to tell me that I'm talking to myself. Phase 2. A few years later, we get a divorce. We tried to stay together to make it work for the kids, which is usually a mistake because then kids just grow up with mom and dad arguing all the time. But when we file for divorce, I become a single parent, I have custody of the 3 kids, I'm working full time, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of these debt letters start showing up. I get calls from debt collectors, and I'm not understanding where this debt is coming from, but I find out that Washington State is a community property state. So it doesn't matter who creates debt while you're married, anybody's debt is our debt. And this would be the point in time where I found out her friend didn't commit identity theft. She was actually a good friend to my ex, and she had covered for her spending problem by allowing the debt that had been going to her house so she can conceal it from me look like she had committed identity theft. But after the divorce, she filed a bankruptcy, which made our debt my debt. And working in law enforcement, having a lot of debt or a bad credit score or filing for a bankruptcy can be a career killer, because if you have financial stress, you might be more likely to take a bribe and you're not going to advance very far in law enforcement, or you could just get fired. So in phase 2, to get a handle on how much debt there was and even how to pay these debts, I started contacting the debtors so that I could figure out the best way to move forward. Luckily, this is what brings us to phase 3, where there's something that you can learn about debt. As I put together the total amount of this debt, it was several $100,000. And I got very lucky. During the conversation with one of the creditors, I was pointing out that I didn't know about this debt. I was trying to find out how to pay it, how to make the payments and how much it was, and that it was mine now because my ex had filed bankruptcy, so the debt became mine. And luckily, just luckily, I heard the debtor ask, "Do you plan on filing bankruptcy too? Because if you do, we would take a significantly smaller amount than what you actually owe." And my brain broke. That's a thing? People will take less than what you owe them? So I called each and every single one of the creditors, and all of them, except for a discovery card, a dentist bill, and apparently an apartment that I didn't know we had rented, wouldn't budge. Those 3 debts stayed the same. But the several $100,000 of debt, most of the creditors dropped it down to 20, 25, or 30% of what was actually owed. So what I ended up actually owing was $89,000 in bad debt that was in my name that I had no clue existed. I slowly started working on it using the debt snowball that at the time I didn't know had a name. Dave Ramsey talks about it. It's where you take the smallest amount that you owe on anything and focus on paying it off with the extra money that you have. Once it's paid off, you take the extra money that you have and the payment you were making on that debt, add that to the next one, and work your way up. The idea being the small dopamine hits that happen as you pay off each one of these debts, it makes you more likely to continue. I know mathematically it makes more sense to use the avalanche approach, where you pick the highest interest rate and focus on paying that down, because the more interest you're paying, the more it's costing you. For some reason, it's really hard for me to say the things I'm saying in this video. And I figured that I would just keep postponing it every day, and never actually get to doing this. But apparently, but not today. So now that I'm putting this into this video, do me a favor. In the comments below, if you think that there was information in this video that would benefit people. I talked about the debt avalanche, where you focus on the highest interest rate because it makes the most sense mathematically. I talked about the debt snowball, where you focus on paying off the smallest amounts because it removes the human element and lets you focus on paying off and getting that constant reward of getting things that are smaller taken care of. And I talked about how important it is for each and every one of us to check our credit to see what debt is in our name to make sure that we know about it. If you think this has value, in the comments below, write, "Keep it up." If you think this was a complete waste of time, and you think that no grown man should ever in his life share emotional things, in the comments below, so that I don't waste anybody else's time, write, "Take it down." It's kind of a vote. And if I get more take it downs than keep it ups, I'll delete the video so that I don't waste anybody else's time. And a last little bit of advice that I learned on this trip to the airport, because normally whenever I check a bag that has a gun in it, I usually have enough ammunition in a box to travel. But since I only had the ammunition that was in the actual gun itself this trip, the person at the counter told me that I had to throw it away because it wasn't in its original packaging. But when I went to have the gun inspected before they checked the bag, the person there told me that I could take the ammunition and I can put it in the magazine of the handgun. As long as it was controlled and not rolling around, I was able to take it with me. So that when I landed in Texas, I didn't have to go out and find a store to find ammunition, because as everyone knows right now, there's actually not a lot of it out there. And I have to say, everybody that I encountered in Texas, all the way across the state, was amazing. Almost every gas station or truck stop that I stopped at, people talked to me. I'm not used to that in Washington State. And of course, in Texas, I couldn't resist. I had to take this picture. And as I wrap up, one thing my father told me when I was a kid is that if anybody ever takes advantage of you or uses you, that the best revenge is to live a happy life. And I have to say that since my divorce, my life has been phenomenal. I'm an extremely happy person, and I think things are working out well. It's taken some focus and some discipline. But I'm also really happy that my ex's life has been great too. She's met a new guy, got married, had a kid, they're super happy. And when every time somebody goes through a divorce, there's a period of time where we have animosity or anger towards that person. But everybody should remember that at one point in our lives, if we're going through a divorce or a separation, that there was a point in time where we loved that person enough to marry them or to have kids with them. So I'm happy that that person is happy now. Since you're watching this, apparently they had enough vodka here for me to be able to push the post button. I really hope I made it worth your time clicking on this video today. If you liked it, if you thought you got anything out of it, hit like, hit subscribe, share it with a friend. Maybe they can laugh at my mistakes. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.